chosen one, before you scroll, before you let this moment slip past you like so many others, understand this. There are some messages that are not meant for crowds. There are words that lose their power when they are overheard by the wrong ears. And there are moments when God does not shout, does not announce himself with thunder or spectacle, but instead leans in close and says, watch this alone right now. Not because you are better than anyone else, not because you are more important in the way the world defines importance, but because your spirit is positioned to hear something that noise would drown out. You didn't click this by accident. Accidents don't carry this kind of weight. Accidents don't press on your chest like this. Something in you felt the pull, even if your mind tried to dismiss it, even if you told yourself you were just curious, just passing time. Curiosity is often the doorway God uses when certainty would scare you away. There is a reason isolation keeps finding you lately. A reason conversations feel shallow, familiar environments feel foreign, and things that once satisfied you now leave you empty. This is not depression. This is not failure. This is preparation. God has a habit of pulling his chosen ones away before he pushes them forward. Think about it. Every major shift begins in private. Seeds break open underground. Muscles tear in silence before they grow in strength. Even your greatest breakthroughs have always been preceded by seasons where no one understood you, where you felt unseen, uncelebrated, and unsure. You thought those seasons meant you were being left behind, but they were actually proof that you were being set apart. God said, watch this alone, because what he is about to show you would be misunderstood if explained to the wrong people. You've already experienced this. Every time you tried to share the vision too early, it was met with doubt. Every time you spoke from your spirit instead of your mouth, someone tried to correct you. So God closed the room, not to punish you, but to protect you. There are revelations that don't survive commentary. There are instructions that can only be received in stillness, and there are transformations that happen quietly so that when the results appear, no one can trace them back to human influence. Right now, your life may look ordinary on the surface, but something extraordinary is shifting beneath it. You are being reprogrammed. Old desires are losing their grip. Old fears are being exposed. Old patterns are becoming uncomfortable. That discomfort is not a warning sign, it is confirmation. Comfort keeps you repeating yesterday. Discomfort forces you to confront tomorrow. God is not interested in maintaining the version of you that survived. He is preparing the version of you that will lead, endure, and carry weight. And weight is not given to those who are distracted by applause. You have been asking God for clarity, but what he has been giving you is endurance. You wanted answers. He gave you resilience. You wanted a map. He gave you strength in your legs, because if he explained everything at once, you would try to rush the process, skip the lessons, avoid the pruning. And pruning always feels like loss before it feels like growth. Things are being removed from your life not because they are bad, but because they can no longer go where you are going. Some connections cannot survive your next level of awareness. Some habits cannot coexist with your next assignment. Some versions of you must die so that the calling can live. Watching this alone is part of the test. Can you sit with truth without immediate validation? Can you let something resonate without running to explain it to someone else? Can you trust what God is doing in you even when there is no external proof yet? This is where many chosen ones stumble. They mistake secrecy for stagnation. They mistake silence for absence. But God is closest when he is quiet. When there are no signs, no confirmations, no sudden miracles, that is often when the deepest work is happening. Foundations are being laid where no one can see them, so that what rises later cannot be shaken. You've noticed how sensitive you've become lately. Words hit deeper, energy feels louder, crowds feel heavier. This is not weakness, this is discernment sharpening. God is tuning your perception, because where you are headed requires awareness. You will be placed in environments where discernment matters more than talent, where reading between the lines matters more than speaking, where knowing when to move matters more than knowing how. And that kind of awareness is developed in solitude, not in chaos. There is also something else you need to understand, and it may challenge the way you see yourself. Being chosen does not mean being spared. It often means being trusted with more pressure, more responsibility, more refinement. You've endured things others didn't have to. You've carried weight that was never acknowledged. You've been strong for so long that people forgot to ask if you were tired. God saw all of it. None of it was wasted. Every delay, every rejection, every moment you felt overlooked was shaping your capacity. You are not behind, you are being timed. Right now, there is a decision forming inside you. You can feel it, even if you haven't named it yet, a quiet knowing that something has to change, that you cannot keep living on autopilot, that the old ways of thinking are no longer sustainable. God is not forcing this decision, He is inviting it. That invitation feels heavy because it comes with responsibility. Once you see clearly, you can't pretend anymore. Once you hear truth, you can't unhear it. Watching this alone is your moment of honesty. No masks, no performance, no one to impress, just you and the realization that your life has more meaning than you've been allowing yourself to. Believe. Do not rush to act after this. Let it settle. Let it rearrange you. Transformation is not loud at first. It is subtle. It changes how you respond before it changes what you do. It changes what you tolerate before it changes what you pursue. You will notice yourself pulling back from things that drain you. You will feel a new resistance to compromise. You will start valuing your time differently. These are signs that alignment is happening. Alignment always begins internally before it manifests externally. And understand this too, not everyone who knows you now will recognize you later. Some will say you change like it's an accusation. Let them. Growth always looks like betrayal to people who benefited from your old boundaries. You are in OT called to be understood by everyone. You are called to be obedient to what is being placed inside you. God said, watch this alone, because your obedience cannot depend on consensus. It has to come from conviction. You are closer than you think, closer to clarity, closer to purpose, closer to a version of yourself that no longer doubts every step. But closeness does not mean ease. The final stretch is often the quietest and the heaviest. This is where patience is tested. This is where faith is refined. This is where you learn to move without needing reassurance. Stay here for a moment. Breathe. Let the weight of this message sit with you. Not everything needs an immediate reaction. Some things need to be absorbed slowly, like medicine that works over time. God is not done with you. In fact, this is the part where things begin to accelerate, but only if you resist the urge to run ahead of the process. Watch, listen. Observe what starts shifting in your thoughts after this. Pay attention to what no longer fits, to what suddenly feels out of alignment. These are not coincidences. These are instructions unfolding in real time. And as you sit with this, as you remain here a little longer, you may start to realize that this moment was never about the words you're hearing, but about the awakening that's happening inside you. The quiet recognition that you are standing on the edge of something significant, something that will require courage, discipline, and a willingness to let go of who you've been pretending to be. Because once this door opens, once you truly accept what's being asked of you, there is no returning to the comfort of not knowing. Only the responsibility of stepping forward even when the path is still forming beneath your feet. And the next move hasn't been explained yet, but you can feel it pulling you, urging you to stay present, to stay aware, to stay grounded in this moment where everything begins to shift. And you realize that the silence you're in right now is not empty at all. It's full of instruction, full of preparation, full of a kind of power that only reveals itself when you're willing to sit alone long enough to hear it. And as that understanding settles deeper, you may notice your perspective changing, your priorities rearranging, your tolerance for distractions fading, because something greater is asking for your attention. And it won't compete with noise. It will wait until you are still enough to notice that the next phase of your life is not going to announce itself loudly. It will start as a whisper, a nudge, a subtle shift in direction that only makes sense if you're paying attention right now, alone, present, open, ready to receive what comes next, even if it challenges you, even if it requires you to release habits, people, or beliefs that once felt safe but no longer serve the person you're becoming. And as you sit with that realization, you may feel a mix of excitement and fear, because growth always carries both, and that feeling is your signal that you're standing exactly where you're meant to be as this moment continues to unfold, and you begin to sense that what happens after this won't be rushed, won't be forced, but will move steadily, deliberately, shaping your path one quiet decision at a time, as you learn to trust what you're being shown without needing to explain it to anyone else just yet. Because some things are meant to be carried in silence until the time comes to act, and that time will reveal itself when you are fully prepared to step into it without hesitation, without looking back, without doubting that the voice guiding you now has been with you all along, waiting for this exact moment when you are finally still enough, alone enough, and open enough to hear what it has been trying to show you as you remain here, listening, watching, feeling the shift deepen, knowing that this is only the beginning of what is about to unfold in your life as you continue forward from this moment, without rushing to explain it, without trying to label it, but allowing it to grow within you until the next step becomes clear and you find yourself moving differently, thinking differently, choosing differently, guided by something that feels steady, grounded, undeniable, as the weight of this message continues to settle, and you realize that the reason you were asked to watch this alone is because what comes next will require a level of trust, focus, and commitment that cannot be borrowed from anyone else, only discovered within you as this awareness continues to expand, and you begin to notice how even now your mind is quieter, your attention sharper, your sense of direction slowly aligning with something that feels both unfamiliar and deeply familiar at the same time, like remembering something you always knew but forgot. And as that recognition deepens, you stay here a little longer, letting it sink in, knowing that there is more unfolding beneath the surface and that this moment is not meant to end abruptly, but to carry you forward into the next phase where your actions, your patience, and your willingness to remain grounded will determine how smoothly you step into what has been prepared for you. And as you hold that awareness, you may start to feel the subtle pressure of responsibility settling in, not as a burden, but as a call inviting you to rise, to mature, to become more intentional with your time, your energy, your choices, because the season ahead will respond to who you are becoming right now in this quiet space, in this private moment, as you continue to sit with it, letting the message work on you from the inside out, understanding that the shift you're experiencing is real, it's happening, and it's leading you towards something that will require you to stay present, disciplined, and deeply connected to this inner knowing as everything continues to unfold from here. And as you remain in that unfolding awareness, you may start to recognize patterns from your past resurfacing, not to trap you, but to be resolved. Memories you thought you buried come back with new meaning. Conversations replay in your mind, not as regrets, but as lessons finally revealing their purpose. God often revisits old chapters when he's preparing you for a new one, not to shame you for where you were, but to show you how far you've come and how much stronger you are now. What once broke you no longer has the same power, and that realization alone should tell you something important is changing. You are learning to sit with yourself without distraction, and that is rare. Most people run from silence because silence forces honesty. Silence reveals what noise has been hiding. In this stillness, you're beginning to hear your own thoughts clearly, and even more than that, you're learning to recognize which thoughts are yours and which ones were planted by fear, doubt, or other people's expectations. This discernment is not accidental, it is necessary. Where you're headed, confusion will be expensive. Clarity will be your protection. There will be moments soon where you'll be tempted to return to familiar chaos simply because it's familiar. Old habits will knock. Old connections will resurface. Old versions of yourself will try to convince you that growth is lonely and isolation means you're missing out. But pay attention to how your body responds now. Pay attention to how your spirit reacts. Things that once felt exciting now feel heavy. That's alignment happening. That's your internal compass recalibrating. Don't fight it. Let it guide you away from what no longer feeds you. You may also notice an increasing sense of urgency, not panic, not anxiety, but a quiet pressure to be intentional. Time feels different now. Wasted hours bother you more. Meaningless conversations drain you faster. This isn't because you're becoming cold or distant. It's because you're becoming focused. God is teaching you the value of your attention. Where you place it will determine what grows. Where you withdraw it will naturally fade. This is how pruning works in real life. No dramatic endings, just a gradual turning away from what no longer aligns. You spent a long time being available to everyone else, being the listener, being the supporter, being the one who held things together. And now you're learning that availability without boundaries is a slow form of self-abandonment. God is not calling you to disappear, but he is calling you to prioritize alignment over approval. Some people only know how to relate to the version of you that overextended, overgave, and underasked. When you change that dynamic, they may resist. That resistance is not your responsibility to fix. As you continue watching this alone, understand that solitude is not punishment, it's training. Leaders are trained alone. Warriors are sharpened in private. Visionaries are refined away from the crowd. The need to always be understood, validated, or seen is being gently removed from you. In its place, a quieter confidence is forming, one that doesn't announce itself, one that doesn't argue, one that simply knows when to move and when to wait. Waiting will become one of your greatest disciplines. Not passive waiting, but active patience, the kind that prepares while trusting, the kind that doesn't panic when things take longer than expected. God is stretching your capacity to hold promise without demanding immediate results. This is crucial because what's coming will require consistency, not bursts of motivation. You are being shaped for longevity, not hype. You may start to feel disconnected from certain ambitions you once chased relentlessly. Goals that were fueled by proving yourself no longer motivate you the same way. That's because God is replacing performance-driven purpose with alignment-driven calling. You won't need to convince anyone of who you are, where you're going. Your presence will speak before your words do. But that presence is built here in moments like this where no one is watching and nothing is being posted. Notice how your reactions are slowing down, how you're pausing before responding, how you're questioning impulses. Instead of obeying them immediately. This is maturity setting in. This is wisdom developing. You're no longer being pulled in every direction by emotion. You're learning to respond from intention. That shift alone will change the trajectory of your life. There will be times when doubt creeps in quietly, whispering that you're imagining this shift, that nothing is really changing, that you'll end up back where you started. When that happens, return to what you feel now. Return to this moment of awareness. Doubt is loud when growth is subtle. But subtle doesn't mean insignificant. Rivers carve canyons slowly. Roots grow deep in darkness. The most powerful transformations are the least visible at first. You're also being taught restraint. Not everything needs a response. Not every battle needs to be fought. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. God is teaching you when silence is strength, when walking away is wisdom, when conserving energy is strategy. This will feel uncomfortable first because you're used to explaining yourself, defending yourself, proving your intentions. But the more aligned you become, the less explanation you'll need. Pay attention to the new questions forming in your mind. They're different now. Less about why is this happening to me and more about what is this teaching me. That shift marks the transition from survival to purpose. Victims ask why, builders ask how, leaders ask what's required of them. You're stepping into that space now, even if you don't fully recognize it yet. There will be moments ahead where you'll feel the urge to rush, to force clarity, to demand signs. Resist that urge. Trust the process unfolding and lay RS. God rarely reveals the full picture at once, not because he's withholding, but because growth happens in stages. You don't need to see the entire staircase to take the next step. You only need enough light for where your foot is about to land. As this awareness deepens, you may find yourself simplifying your life naturally. Fewer distractions, fewer unnecessary commitments, more intentional routines. This is not boredom. This is alignment. Peace often looks quiet from the outside. Don't confuse stillness with stagnation. Some of the most important work you'll ever do will happen internally, unseen and uncelebrated. You're also learning to trust yourself again. After years of second guessing, overthinking, and deferring to others' opinions, your intuition is strengthening. That inner voice you ignored before is becoming clearer, not louder, but steadier. It doesn't rush you. It doesn't pressure you. It simply guides you. Learning to trust that voice will be essential in the season ahead. There will come a time when you'll look back at this moment and realize this was a turning point. Not because everything changed immediately, but because you did. Your posture shifted, your awareness expanded, your tolerance for misalignment decreased. That internal shift will quietly influence every decision you make moving forward. You may also begin to feel a deeper sense of responsibility, not to others, but to yourself, to honor what you're being shown, to protect the space where growth is happening, to stop betraying your own intuition to keep others comfortable. This responsibility isn't heavy when you accept it. It becomes heavy only when you resist it. God is not rushing but he is preparing you to move when the moment arrives, preparing you to recognize opportunity without fear, preparing you to step forward without needing permission. The isolation you're experiencing now is temporary, but the strength it's building will last. Stay present, stay grounded. Let this message continue, working on you long after the words fade. You don't need to explain it. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to act on it immediately. Just remain open, remain attentive, remain honest with yourself. Because as this unfolds, you'll start to notice that the path ahead isn't as unclear as it once seemed. It's simply quieter. And in that quiet, you'll begin to sense your next steps forming naturally, not forced, not rushed, but aligned with a deeper understanding of who you are becoming and why this season of watching, waiting, and listening alone was necessary to prepare you for what is about to emerge next as you continue forward from this moment, carrying a calm certainty that something meaningful is taking shape beneath the surface, and that every day from here on out will invite you to choose alignment over distraction, intention over impulse, and trust over fear as the process continues to reveal itself, one quiet realization at a time. And as you stay with this, you may begin to notice how your sense of identity is loosening from old labels. Labels you accepted because they were convenient. Labels others placed on you because they couldn't see beyond a single chapter of your life. God is slowly detaching you from definitions that no longer fit. And that process can feel unsettling because certainty, even when limiting, feels safer than the unknown. But what's opening up now requires space. You can't carry a larger calling while clinging to a smaller self-image. There will be moments where you feel like you're standing between worlds, not who you used to be, but not fully who you're becoming either. That in-between space can feel lonely, confusing, and heavy, but it's also sacred. Transitions are rarely comfortable. They strip you of familiar reference points. They force you to rely on internal guidance instead of external validation. This is where trust deepens, not blind trust, but earned trust, built through repeated moments of choosing alignment, even when it costs you comfort. You may also find that your tolerance for superficiality is fading. Small talk feels exhausting. Surface level interactions feel empty. You're craving depth, meaning, truth. This doesn't make you arrogant or withdrawn. It means your spirit is hungry for substance. And hunger is a sign of growth. God doesn't awaken desires without intending to fulfill them, but fulfillment doesn't always come immediately. Sometimes the hunger itself sharpens your discernment, teaching you to recognize what truly nourishes you and what merely distracts you. As this inner shift continues, you might experience resistance, not just from others, but from parts of yourself. Old coping mechanisms will try to reassert control. Old fears will resurface with new arguments. They'll sound reasonable, practical, protective. But listen closely. Fear always disguises itself as logic when it feels threatened. It will tell you to wait longer than necessary, to play smaller than you're called to stay silent when truth needs expression. Recognize it, but don't let it lead. God is teaching you the difference between patience and procrastination, between discernment and avoidance. That distinction matters. Patience is calm. Procrastination is restless. Discernment brings clarity. Avoidance breeds anxiety. As you become more attuned to yourself, you'll start to feel the difference. One feels grounded, the other feels heavy. One expands you, the other contracts you. Let that awareness guide you. There's also refinement happening in how you see power. You're learning that real power doesn't announce itself. It doesn't dominate conversations. It doesn't need to be right all the time. Real power is self-control, emotional regulation, the ability to stay centered when everything around you is pulling for a reaction. God is cultivating that in you now, because where you're going, reactionary behavior will be used against you. Stillness will be your advantage. You might notice that you're becoming more selective with your words, speaking less, but meaning more, listening more carefully, observing patterns instead of isolated moments. This isn't withdrawal, it's wisdom developing. You're learning to read situations fully before responding, and that skill will protect you from unnecessary conflict and wasted energy. At times, this season may feel uneventful on the surface. Days pass without obvious breakthroughs. Nothing dramatic seems to be happening. But internally, you're changing at a pace you don't yet realize. Beliefs are being challenged. Priorities are being reordered. Values are being clarified. This is structural work, foundational work, and foundations are never glamorous, but they determine how high and how saint able you can build later. You may start to feel an unfamiliar sense of calm in situations that once overwhelmed you. Things that used to trigger anxiety now feel manageable. This isn't because the challenges disappeared, but because your internal capacity expanded. God doesn't always remove pressure. Sometimes he strengthens the container. And strength like that can't be rushed. It's earned through repetition, through endurance, through choosing awareness again and again. There will also be moments of grief in this process. Grief for versions of yourself that tried their best with what they knew at the time. Grief for relationships that couldn't grow with you. Grief for time spent disconnected from your truth. Let that grief pass through you without judgment. It's part of integration. Honoring where you've been allows you to move forward without carrying resentment or regret. You're also being invited to redefine success. Not as speed, visibility, or approval, but as alignment, sustainability, and peace. The world rewards urgency. God rewards obedience. The world celebrates outcomes. God shapes character, and character will outlast circumstances. This redefinition will influence the choices you make moving forward, even when no one else understands why you're choosing the slower, quieter path. As this awareness deepens, you may feel less urgency to explain yourself. Silence will feel less awkward. Pauses will feel more natural. You're learning that not everything needs immediate articulation. Some truths need time to mature before they're spoken. Some insights lose their power when shared too early. Protect what's growing in you. Not everyone deserves access to your process. You may also find yourself drawn to practices that ground you. Moments of stillness, reflection, writing, walking, prayer. These aren't habits you need to force. They'll arise naturally as your system seeks balance. Listen to those inclinations. They're signals that your inner world is reorganizing itself around a new center. God is also recalibrating how you handle uncertainty. You don't need every answer up front anymore. You're learning to move with partial clarity, trusting that more will be revealed as needed. This flexibility will serve you well. Rigidity breaks under pressure. Adaptability endures. There may come a moment soon when an opportunity presents itself subtly, not loudly, not dramatically. It won't look like the breakthrough you imagined. It may even feel inconvenient or misaligned with your expectations, but pay attention to how it resonates internally. God often opens doors quietly, trusting that those who are aligned will recognize them without fanfare. You are not late. You are not forgotten. You are not drifting. You are being positioned. Positioning takes time. It requires adjustments. It involves waiting, observing, recalibrating. And every day you remain present instead of panicked, aligned instead of reactive. You are cooperating with that positioning. As you continue in this space, you may notice that your standards are rising, not out of judgment, but out of clarity. You're less willing to compromise your values for convenience, less willing to accept environments that dull your awareness. This isn't isolation for its own sake. It's stewardship. You're learning to protect your energy because you're starting to understand its value. There will be days when you question this path, when you wonder if it would be easier to return to old patterns, old identities, old comforts. Ease will tempt you. Familiarity will call you back, but growth rarely feels easy in the moment. It feels stretching, uncertain, demanding, and yet it leads to a deeper sense of fulfillment than comfort ever could. God is shaping your resilience, not just your ability to withstand hardship, but your ability to remain grounded in truth when circumstances fluctuate. This kind of resilience allows you to lead yourself well, regardless of external conditions. And self-leadership is the foundation of any greater responsibility you may carry later. You don't need to rush this. You don't need to perform it. You don't need to prove that something is happening. Trust that the work being done in you now will reveal itself through your choices, your reactions, your consistency over time. Transformation always becomes visible eventually, but it begins invisibly. As this message continues to echo within you, stay attentive to the small shifts, the subtle changes, the quiet realizations. They are markers along the path. They are signs that you are responding to the invitation you were given when you were told to watch this alone, to listen without distraction, to allow yourself to be shaped without interference, knowing that what is forming now is not meant to impress immediately, but to endure, to support what will be built later, to carry weight when the moment comes for you to. Step forward with clarity, intention, and a steadiness that wasn't rushed into existence, but cultivated patiently in this private season, where awareness deepens day by day, where alignment becomes more natural than effort, and where you continue to move through each moment with a growing sense that something meaningful is unfolding beneath the surface, and that remaining present, receptive, and honest with yourself is the most important thing you can do as the process carries on, quietly, deliberately, shaping you for what lies ahead as you remain here, engaged, listening, and allowing the next layers to reveal themselves in their own time. And as this unfolding continues, you may begin to sense a deeper separation between who you are becoming and the expectations that were once placed on you. Expectations can be heavy when they're not aligned with your truth. For a long time, you carried them because you didn't know there was another option. You thought responsibility meant obligation to everyone else's comfort. But now you're learning that responsibility also means honesty with yourself. God is teaching you that obedience sometimes looks like disappointing people who benefited from your silence. You may feel moments of guilt for choosing yourself more intentionally. That guilt is learned, not innate. It was shaped by years of prioritizing harmony over truth. But harmony without truth is fragile. It requires constant self-erasure to maintain. God is dismantling that pattern in you now, gently but firmly, showing you that peace rooted in authenticity is far more stable than approval built on compromise. Your internal dialogue is changing too. Where there was once harsh self-criticism, there is now curiosity. Where there was once urgency to fix everything immediately, there is now patience to understand first. This shift matters more. Than you realize. How you speak to yourself determines how you move through the world. And God is teaching you to lead yourself with wisdom instead of pressure. There may be moments where you feel like you're losing motivation for things you once chased relentlessly. That's because your motivation is maturing. It's no longer driven by fear of falling behind or the need to prove worth. It's being replaced by a quieter, steadier drive rooted in alignment. This kind of motivation doesn't burn out easily. It doesn't rely on external validation. It endures because it's connected to purpose, not ego. As you grow more comfortable in silence, you may notice that your intuition speaks more clearly. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush. It simply presents insight calmly and waits for you to trust it. Learning to trust that voice will require unlearning years of self-doubt. But each time you honor it, even in small ways, it grows stronger. Confidence is built through follow-through, not affirmation. You're also becoming more aware of your emotional landscape. You're noticing feelings as information rather than commands. You're learning to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. This emotional resilience is crucial. Where you're going, you'll need to remain centered even when emotions fluctuate. God is training you to respond rather than react, to observe rather than absorb. There may be a sense of detachment forming, not from life, but from chaos. Things that once pulled you into unnecessary drama no longer have the same grip. You're seeing situations more clearly now without being entangled in them. This clarity will help you make decisions from wisdom instead of impulse. You might also feel an increasing pull towards simplicity. Simplifying your schedule, your relationships, your goals. Complexity often masquerades as productivity, but simplicity creates focus. God is streamlining your life so that your energy isn't scattered across too many directions. Focus multiplies effectiveness. Distraction dilutes it. There will be times when you're tempted to measure your progress against others. Resist that. Comparison distorts perception. Everyone's timing is different because everyone's preparation is different. God is not working on a public timeline with you. He's working on a personal one. Trust the pacing of your own process. You may also find that you're becoming more discerning about what you consume, conversations, content, environments. You're realizing that what you allow into your mind shapes your inner world. This awareness isn't about restriction, it's about stewardship. You're learning to guard your attention because it fuels your direction. As this continues, you might feel moments of deep gratitude surface unexpectedly. Gratitude for lessons that once felt painful, gratitude for delays that protected you, gratitude for solitude that strengthened you. This gratitude signals integration. It means you're no longer fighting your past. You're learning from it. God is also refining your sense of timing. You're learning when to speak and when to wait, when to move and when to observe. Timing turns good decisions into effective ones. And timing is learned through patience, not haste. There may be moments ahead where you'll need to make choices without full reassurance. Choices that feel right internally but lack external confirmation. This is where trust becomes action. Faith isn't passive belief. It's movement in alignment with what you know to be true, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. You're also becoming more comfortable with uncertainty, not because you enjoy it, but because you trust yourself to navigate it. This self-trust is being built intentionally. God is showing you that you can adapt, learn, and grow even when conditions change. You may notice a shift in how you define safety. Safety used to mean predictability, familiar routines, known outcomes. Now, safety is beginning to feel like alignment, like being honest, like listening to your inner guidance. This shift will free you from the fear that once kept you stuck. As this awareness deepens, your presence will begin to change how others experience you. Without trying, you'll bring a sense of calm into rooms, not because you have all the answers, but because you're grounded. Grounded people create stability. And stability is magnetic. You might not realize it yet, but people will start watching how you move, how you respond, how you handle pressure. Leadership isn't assigned, it's recognized. And recognition often comes quietly at first. There will be days when you feel deeply connected to this process and days when you feel disconnected and uncertain. Both are part of growth. Consistency doesn't mean constant clarity. It means continuing to choose alignment even when clarity fades temporarily. God is also teaching you to release control over outcomes. Control often stems from fear of disappointment, but surrender creates space for possibilities you couldn't have planned. You're learning to do your part diligently while trusting the unfolding beyond your control. You may begin to feel a deeper sense of compassion for others, even those who don't understand you. Growth expands empathy. When you see how much work it takes to change, you stop expecting everyone to be ready at the same time. At the same time, you're learning to maintain boundaries without guilt. Compassion doesn't require self-sacrifice. Understanding doesn't require overextension. God is teaching you balance, how to be open without being drained. As this season continues, you may feel moments of anticipation, not anxious anticipation, but a quiet readiness, a sense that something will eventually require you to step forward. That readiness is being built now through awareness, discipline, and patience. You don't need to force anything. You don't need to chase signs. Stay present, stay observant, stay honest. The next steps will reveal themselves naturally, often through subtle opportunities, quiet conversations, or internal clarity that feels undeniable. Remember, this process isn't linear. There will be days of progress and days of reflection, days of confidence and days of doubt. None of that negates what's happening. Growth accommodates fluctuation. As you remain in this space, continue to listen, not just to words, but to what's happening beneath them, to the shifts in your reactions, to the changes in your priority, ties, to the emerging clarity about what matters most. Because this season of watching, waiting, and listening is not an interruption to your life. It is your life shaping itself into something more intentional, more aligned, more grounded than before. And as you continue forward from here, without rushing to conclude anything, without trying to label the outcome, you stay open to the process as it keeps unfolding, layer by layer, realization by realization, shaping you quietly, steadily, preparing you for moments ahead that will require the depth, awareness, and steadiness being cultivated right now as you remain present in this unfolding without needing an ending, without needing a final statement, simply allowing the movement to continue as it naturally does. Chosen one, as you arrive at this point, don't rush to stand up and move on as if nothing happened. Let this moment mark you. Let it draw a quiet line between who you were before and who you are choosing to become now. This was never about words alone, never about inspiration that fades by morning. This was about recognition, about remembering something deep inside you that has been waiting patiently for your attention. God didn't ask you to watch this alone to isolate you, but to align you, to strip away the noise long enough for truth to land without interference. And if you're honest with yourself, you can feel it, that subtle shift, that calm weight, that steady clarity settling in where confusion used to live. Carry that with you, protect it. Move differently because of it. You don't need to announce what's happening. You don't need permission to honor it. The next season of your life will respond not to what you say, but to what you become in this quiet place. Stay grounded. Stay obedient to what you now know. When you step forward from here, do it with patience, with intention, and with the confidence that the same voice that called you into this moment will continue guiding you step by step exactly when you're ready